The sun hung low over Dustvale like a heavy glowing coin, its light sharp, its heat relentless. Not even the wind dared stir. Everything was still, like the whole desert had paused, waiting for something unnamed. And that's when people first noticed him. He wasn't part of the town. No one recognized his face. He didn't speak. He didn't beg. He simply sat, silent and still, at the edge of a rusted bus shelter long forgotten by the schedule it once served. Desert fatigues, sun-bleached and weathered, clung to his frame. His boots were thick with dust, and his eyes, those were the kind of eyes that didn't just look, they watched. His name was Nathan Cole, but no one knew that yet. He had arrived without announcement, like a ghost that had wandered into town on the back of the wind. No vehicle, no visible baggage, no identification. Just a battered leather notebook held in his lap in a stillness that unnerved even the birds that circled above. To some, he looked like a drifter. To others, a veteran. But to most, he looked like trouble. Especially to Lucille Harper, owner of Harper's General Goods, who watched him from behind the dusty window of her shop. A sharp, wiry woman in her late 50s, Lucille had lived in Dustvale her entire life. She had raised children here, buried a husband here, and she had learned long ago to trust her instincts and never ignore a stranger who didn't blink. By 8:42 a.m., she picked up her rotary phone and dialed the sheriff's office. "A man is sitting out by the old bus shelter," she told them, "not moving, not asking for nothing, just sitting and watching." Within 20 minutes, the crunch of tires against gravel echoed through the air. A sheriff's deputy pulled into view, dust kicking up behind the squad car like a warning. The car came to a halt a few yards away, and out stepped Deputy Jordan Miles, young, sunburned, and full of the kind of authority that doesn't yet know its limits. He adjusted his belt, walked up slowly, and rested a hand near his holster. The stranger didn't move. "Morning, partner," Jordan called out. "Need a ride? You lost or just enjoying the view?" Nathan turned his head, slowly, eyes calm but unreadable. "I'm fine," he replied, voice low and even. "Just passing through." Jordan squinted. "Got ID on you?" Nathan didn't answer right away. When he did, the words were simple. "No, sir, not on me." That was enough to raise red flags in a town like Dustvale. Radio static crackled as the deputy called for backup. "Just standard," he said, but the air had already shifted. There was something unspoken in the way the man sat. Not hostile, not scared, just prepared, like someone waiting for a moment he already knew was coming. From across the street, Lucille narrowed her eyes. This wasn't just some loner, she thought. This was something else. Something she couldn't name but had felt once, long ago, the day before her late husband shipped out for the last time. By 9:15 a.m., another patrol car arrived, trailing more heat behind it. Dust clung to the windows as Sheriff Rick Halstead stepped out. Older than Jordan, but just as wary, he approached with the guarded steps of a man who'd lived too long in a town that never forgot a face and never forgave a mystery. "We don't get many visitors out here," Rick said, "especially ones with no story to tell." Nathan looked up at him, the sun reflecting off the faint lines beneath his eyes. "Some stories don't belong to anyone," he replied. That's when Rick noticed the notebook, leather-bound, frayed at the edges, filled with symbols, coordinates, and marks no one could decipher at a glance. It didn't take long for suspicion to spread. Was he scouting, hiding, waiting for someone? But what they didn't know, not yet was that Nathan Cole wasn't lost. He was exactly where he was meant to be. The sun had risen higher now, turning the edges of Dustvale into glowing blades of heat. Shadows vanished, air shimmered, the kind of heat that made time feel suspended. But no one had left. Lucille Harper stood just inside her shop, arms folded tight, watching through the faded glass. Across the street, Deputy Jordan Miles shifted uncomfortably beside his car, unsure what to do with a man who wouldn't flinch. And beside him, Sheriff Rick Halstead stared at the leather notebook now resting quietly on Nathan Cole's lap. Coordinates, symbols, phrases in shorthand no one could quite read. "What are you writing?" Rick asked at last. Nathan didn't look up. "I'm not," he said. "I'm remembering." Before Rick could press further, the low thrum of tires approached from the south. A white SUV, boxy and imposing, rounded the curve and pulled up behind the sheriff's cruiser. The side of it read, Dustvale County Tactical K-9 Unit. "You called in a dog?" Jordan muttered, surprise. "Standard response," Rick replied, though even he sounded unsure. "You get a man with military training and no eye, no answers, no emotion. You don't take chances." From the vehicle stepped Officer Eliza Trent, tall and deliberate in every movement. She wore her dark hair pulled tight beneath a regulation cap and carried the lean presence of someone used to giving commands without ever raising her voice. A faint scar traced the edge of her jaw, a leftover, they said, from a standoff gone wrong in Phoenix. She didn't talk about it. Trailing behind her was Bolt, her 4-year-old German shepherd. Black sable, sharp-eyed and battle-tested. The dog was focused, trained, and ready. At least he always had been. "You want him to engage?" Eliza asked, her voice flat. "Just check for a response," Rick said. "We're still not sure what he's hiding." Nathan didn't move. Bolt lowered his head, nostrils flaring. He advanced slowly, paws soft against the scorched pavement. Eliza watching closely, hand hovering near her command leash. The whole square seemed to hold its breath. And then Bolt stopped. He tilted his head, ears flattened slightly, his body lowered. Not in aggression but uncertainty. Then the sound no one expected. A quiet whine. Eliza's brows furrowed. "What?" Bolt stepped forward, inch by inch, then paused directly in front of the man no one could name. Nathan raised his hand slowly, open palm, fingers loose, offering no threat. Bolt stared. And then, in a motion so gentle it looked almost rehearsed, the dog pressed his head into Nathan's chest. The square went still. Lucille took a step back. Jordan looked like he'd forgotten how to speak. Rick stared in disbelief. Nathan placed his other hand over Bolt's neck and whispered something too soft to hear. Then, finally, he spoke aloud. His name was Echo. Eliza blinked. "Excuse me?" "Echo, Tactical Unit Delta, Kandahar Province. I was his handler. He saved 6 lives before we lost him in the collapse. They told me he never made it out." Silence swallowed Dustvale. Eliza slowly reached into her vest and pulled out a scanner, passing it gently over Bolt's neck. The device beeped. The screen blinked. VLR EK-47. Former handler, Captain Nathan Cole. Status, presumed KIA, 5 years ago. "Oh, my God," Eliza whispered. Even Rick took a step back, eyes wide. "The Dustvale by Iron so how so dot out." Once Bolt, now Echo again, lowered himself beside Nathan's legs. His body curled protectively at Nathan's feet, tail thumping softly against the cracked concrete. "He remembers," Nathan said softly. "After all this time, he still knows me." Across the square, a small voice piped up from behind the chain-link fence. "That's the man from Grandpa's book," the boy said. "The one with the ball." All heads turned. Standing there was a boy of maybe 10, Miles Carter, wiry, dirt on his jeans, a plastic cup of lemonade in his hand. His wide eyes were locked on Echo. "You're the one they called Ghost Pair," he said. "They said your dog never barked and you never missed." Nathan looked up, truly seeing the boy for the first time. "Where'd you hear that?" "My grandpa was in logistics. He said some soldiers didn't need backup. They were the backup." A flicker of something crossed Nathan's face. Pain? Gratitude? Maybe both. The people of Dustvale had gathered now, silent, watching. They weren't looking at a stranger anymore. They were looking at a man reunited with the only soul who never forgot him. The scene outside the old bus shelter had shifted. What began as a cautious standoff now felt like something sacred. A reunion no one could deny. Echo, the canine trained to neutralize threats, now lay curled beside the man once thought a stranger. The way he leaned into Nathan Cole's leg wasn't just familiarity, it was faith, recognition, something unbreakable. And yet, trouble doesn't always wear a snarl. Sometimes it arrives with tinted windows and government plates. A black SUV rolled slowly into Dustvale's sun-scorched main street. No sirens, no urgency, just precision. The vehicle came to a stop just behind the K-9 unit. Doors open. Lieutenant Commander Damon Blackwell stepped out, crisp in civilian clothes. Dark jeans, button-up shirt, sunglasses that reflected everything but revealed nothing. His presence cut through the heat like a cold blade. His posture was military, but his authority was federal. "Sheriff Halstead," he said without introduction, "step away from the subject." Rick raised a brow. "Subject? He's a man, sitting with a dog." Damon didn't blink. "That man is part of an active Black Ops surveillance program. Classified parameters. Unauthorized exposure." Rick's jaw tightened. "This is my town. I don't answer to suits." "You do today." Before Rick could argue, Nathan spoke for the first time since Echo had returned to his side. "You sent me here, Damon." Damon turned, jaw clenched. "You weren't supposed to be seen." "I wasn't. They called the not me." The air thickened again. Eliza Trent stood frozen beside her K-9 unit, hands still resting near her belt, though she no longer felt sure why. Echo hadn't left Nathan's side, and she couldn't forget the way the dog had whimpered, not in fear, but in recognition. "He's not just a dog," she whispered. He remembered. Damon didn't answer. Instead, he motioned to one of the agents inside the SUV, who opened a case and handed him a slim black tablet. With a few taps, Damon pulled up the chip data, the handler registry, and the mission logs. His lips tightened as he read, "Subject, VLR EKH7, call sign Echo, status, presumed KIA, MIA Kandahar blast site year 5 prior. Prior handler, Captain Nathan Cole, retired classified detail, level 6 Damon side." This complicates everything. Nathan didn't flinch. "No, it simplifies it. He found me, not the other way around." Across the street, more of Dustvale's residents began gathering. Silent, respectful, confused. Among them stood Lucille Harper, arms folded across her chest, eyes sharp as ever. She stepped forward. "What exactly do you plan to do with them?" she asked Damon. He looked surprised. "Ma'am, this is a federal matter. You brought your matter into our town, so now it's our concern." From behind her, a tall, older man with a gnarled cane stepped into the light. His jacket was faded brown, Vietnam era, and his hat read 67th Recon. Retired Hank Willis, Dustvale's oldest veteran. Cranky as hell, but impossible to ignore. "That dog ain't yours anymore," he rasped. "Not if he remembered. Not if he chose." Damon narrowed his eyes. "He's government property." "He's a soldier," Hank replied, tapping his cane. "You don't own loyalty. You earn it." Eliza looked down at Echo, his eyes closed now, breathing even. He wasn't reacting like a trained weapon. He was acting like a soul come home. And then from the edge of the crowd, a young voice broke through. "I posted the video," said Miles Carter, stepping forward, holding up a cracked iPad. Damon turned sharply. "What video?" "The moment the dog recognized him. I wanted people to know. I didn't think—" Damon grabbed the device. eyes scanning as comments scrolled faster than he could read. Thousands of them, people crying, sharing, saluting, calling the story a miracle, a bond that war couldn't break. One phrase stood out, repeated again and again: the Dustvale Guardian. Nathan stood now, slowly, calm, steady. You can take my mission. You can take the uniform, but you won't take him. Lucille placed a hand on his shoulder. Hank nodded behind her. Eliza Trent stepped forward and for the first time unclipped Echo's regulation collar. He doesn't work for us anymore. Damon didn't respond. He looked around, at the town, at the people, at the eyes no longer questioning but watching. Not afraid, not defiant, just firm. He checked his watch. Transport arrives in 90 minutes, he said flatly. We'll see what command decides. But even as he turned away, he knew command wasn't in charge anymore. Something bigger had taken hold. Dustvale had chosen its side. The sun leaned westward over Dustvale, casting long, bruised shadows across the red dirt road. But inside the town square, no one moved. They weren't just spectators anymore. They were witnesses. Federal agents busied themselves near their SUV, making hushed calls behind tinted windows. A low drone in the sky signaled the inbound Black Hawk. Dust lifted gently from the surrounding buildings, like the desert itself was bracing for change. And in the center of it all, Nathan Cole stood still, a soldier no longer in uniform, but never without command. Beside him, Echo rested, unmoving but alert. He didn't need orders. His choice had already been made. Sheriff Rick Halstead shifted uncomfortably, arms crossed, watching the quiet war unfold. He was out of his depth now, and he knew it. Across the square, Lucille Harper returned, this time carrying a small tin bowl and a dented thermos. Water, she said simply, setting it beside Echo. Desert's still cruel, even when it's quiet. Nathan gave her a small nod. No words, just shared understanding. Moments later, Hank Willis, the old veteran, stepped forward again. He leaned on his cane but stood taller than anyone around him. You say this dog's government property, he rasped, looking directly at Damon Blackwell. But I've read more policy than you've signed clearance forms. That animal showed trauma in post-combat evaluations. You never should have reassigned him. Damon looked up from his phone, expression tight. Sir, that's not your call to make. The hell it ain't, Hank snapped. That dog earned retirement, not redeployment, and now he's chosen where he belongs. Eliza Trent, still in full uniform, arms folded, stepped toward Hank and nodded. He did show signs. We called it hesitation, but maybe it was PTSD. Or maybe, Hank muttered, he was just waiting to come home. The words struck hard. Even Rick lowered his head slightly. The people gathered weren't just standing in support anymore. They were laying down lines in the dust. Across the street, Miles Carter sat cross-legged on the curb, watching everything with the solemn eyes of someone witnessing history. His mother, Rachel, stood a few feet back, apron still tied around her waist, worry etched deep in her face. Mama, Miles whispered, they can't take him. They just can't. Rachel didn't answer at first, but her hand moved softly, gently, resting on his shoulder. I know, baby. I know. Back at the center, Nathan knelt beside Echo. His voice was low, almost too soft to hear over the rising hum of chopper blades. I never forgot you, he said. I never will. From behind the federal SUV, Damon appeared again, papers in hand, clipboard gripped tight. We have orders, he said. He comes with us. You're being pulled out and debriefed. 40 minutes. Final decision. Nathan rose slowly, eyes steady. And if I don't go? Damon hesitated. The law said one thing, but the video, the internet, the headlines, the thousands already calling them symbols of loyalty, that said something else. Before he could answer, another voice broke through. "Then you'll have to explain to the world," said Marshal Greg Tuller, finally stepping out from the diner's shaded entryway. "Why did you drag a combat veteran and his service partner apart in front of a town that had already forgiven him?" Damon turned, surprised. "You're with the task force." "Not today," Greg said, holding up his badge. "Today I'm with them." Silence fell again, but not for long. From the corner of the hardware store, Lucille stepped forward once more. This time she carried a small, folded towel. "For the ride," she said simply, offering it to Nathan. He accepted it gently. "No thank you needed." Damon Blackwell looked around at the townspeople, the dusty streets, the soldier with a dog pressed against his leg. And he saw it. This battle was lost, but maybe it was never his to win. He checked his watch, then turned to the agents. "We'll report the retrieval as compromised," he said. "Let them come if they want to try again." Hank exhaled deeply. Rick nodded, finally letting go of the weight on his shoulders. Eliza stepped back, letting Echo stay where he was. From the edge of the diner, Rachel Carter whispered to Miles, "You can say goodbye if you're quick." Miles darted across the street, eyes locked on Echo. He crouched beside the dog, his voice just above a breath. "I'll take care of the bench," he said, "so you'll have somewhere to come back to." Nathan's lips pulled into the faintest smile. "That means more than you know." Echo nudged the boy's cheek gently, and as the helicopter descended behind them, its blades sweeping the dust into glowing spirals of light, Dustvale held its breath once more. Not out of fear, out of reverence. The wind shifted as the Black Hawk descended behind the hardware store, its rotors slicing through the still heat, stirring sand, memory, and silence all at once. Dustvale didn't flinch. This wasn't just a retrieval anymore. It was a ceremony. The townspeople stood at the edges of the square, shielding their eyes against the rising grit. But they didn't turn away. Not from this. Nathan Cole stood straight beside the old bus shelter, Echo leaning gently against his leg, alert but calm. No leash, no commands. Just instinct. Just loyalty. Marshal Greg Tuller stepped forward, documents in hand, voice raised to be heard over the rising thrum. "You don't have to sign this now," he said, offering a folder. "But the agency will want a report on him, on this place, on what happened here." Nathan took it, eyes scanning briefly. Then he tucked the folder into his vest without a word. Nearby, Officer Eliza Trent watched with conflicted eyes. She had trained Echo. She had led him into raids, cleared buildings, and counted on him when seconds mattered. And now she was watching that same dog rest his head against another man's boot, like the world had never moved forward. She approached with something in her hand, a worn canvas chew toy, frayed at the edges, stitched with one word, faith. "He always chose this over food," she said, offering it to Nathan. "Tell him I'm not mad." Nathan accepted it, nodding softly. "I think he knows." From the sidewalk, Miles Carter watched everything, eyes wide, heart thudding. When his mother gave the nod, he rushed forward one last time. He stopped before Echo and whispered, "I'll take care of the bench. You can come back whenever you want." Nathan looked down at him. "You did more than you know, Miles." Then, from the far end of the square, a figure ran through the haze. Lean, mid-40s, wild-eyed, waving a phone in the air. "Wait!" shouted Eli Vance, the town's unofficial conspiracy theorist. "You gotta see this." He skidded to a stop beside Lucille, panting. "It's everywhere. Online. Someone posted the reunion. Thousands of views. People crying, saluting, calling him the Desert Guardian." Damon Blackwell stepped closer, squinting at the phone. "Who posted this?" Miles looked down, guilty. "I just wanted people to see what happened." Damon didn't scold. He turned to Nathan instead. "This complicates things." Nathan shook his head. No, it clarifies everything. He's not your asset anymore. He's a symbol now. Let the world try to take him back. No one responded. No one had to. The crowd murmured their approval. Hank Willis tapped his cane into the dirt. A man and his dog belonged to no one but Guy. The chopper touched down with a thunderous gust. Nathan gave one last nod to the town. Thank you, he said, for reminding me who I was before the uniform. You were always that man, Lucille said softly. You just needed your shadow to catch up. Echo stood, tail wagging once, ears low, not anxious, not afraid, ready. Nathan placed his hand gently on the shepherd's back. Let's go. As they boarded, Greg Tuller handed him a small box wrapped in wax paper. Roast beef and rye, he said. Figure the dog's not the only one hungry. Nathan smiled for the first time all day. Thanks for everything. The chopper lifted, the wind roaring across rooftops, through trees, over tired windows that had seen too much and not enough. And then they were gone, but the story wasn't. Days later, a small plaque appeared by the bench, funded by locals, engraved by Lucille's brother-in-law. It read, "To those who serve and those who wait, seen or unseen, welcome home." Below it, a silhouette of a man and his dog, side by side. Short closing message. Sometimes the strongest bonds don't need words. They just need memory, loyalty, and one moment of recognition to remind us who we are. And sometimes the heroes we forget come back, carrying the ones who never forgot us.